Okay, welcome back to part 3. In today's tutorial we're going to be going over retouching. We'll talk about masks and use a couple of different tools. Basically what we'll do is we'll retouch a face. This is something you'll probably use most of the time throughout your Photoshop experiences, especially as a photographer. So I'll start by opening up a file, double click in the middle, and I'm just going to open up this file here. Okay, so this is basically what our picture will look like when we're done. To view the original, I'm just going to hold in the Alt or Option button and left click on this eye, and that'll show us the original. So a bit of a difference, subtle difference. I don't like to overkill on facial retouching. It's, I don't know, I like things to still look natural when I'm done. So that's the before and after. Okay, so even you can see a change in the eyes, wrinkles gone, a bit of smoothing on the skin, and we're going to basically go through that. As I mentioned, on the disk will be a PSD or a layer file, and it will contain layers which basically let you see what I've affected anyway. So if you click on a layer, it'll tell you, okay, it's got a opacity of 60%, the blend, that kind of thing. So, and it tells you exactly what it is affecting. So there's your lips, got a bit more gloss on it. Okay, so let's go back to the original. I'm going to toss everything else, select this one here up to the top, and I'm going to drag and dump that. Oops, double click by accident. Down to the bottom, click and drag. Come on, my double click action. Well, let me just click on the trash can there. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's start with the wrinkles here a bit. My wife will forgive me. This is my picture of my wife. I think she's gorgeous. And she's the only model I can get that's not going to sue me for using her, or hopefully not. Okay, so I've selected the clone brush here, the healing brush. Sorry, this is the clone stamp here, the healing brush, and I've got my hardness set to 0 because I want it to not blend nicely with the skin. And I'm not going to use too big a size because I'm basically just wanting to cover those lines there. So 37 pixels should be about right. If I hold my option key in, it's going to let me sample, and I'm going to sample from just above it and go along this line here. Okay, be careful where you sample. As you see, it's just copied some of the hair in there, so I'm just take the hair out again and resample and cover there. So I always try and keep in line with, you can see it kind of darkens to the left and lighter to the right. So with the healing stamp, it is quite intuitive. So if I click on the highlighted area and I go into this dark area, it'll try and blend the two. You know, it's not going to leave a hard edge there. But as a rule, I try and keep on an edge to keep similar colors together. I'll take out that spot. When it comes to retouching people, it's very much of a personal thing as well. Also depends on the people. Some people like characteristics that add to them. For example, this little scar here on the right eye. Some might say, well, that's distracting. I want to take it out. Look better, or she'll look prettier without it. But to that person, you might have just erased a piece of her history. So you'll be very careful as to what you do erase. Some people like the pieces that say, well, that's me. Now that little mark there, that's me. So you just have to work from client to client and decide what parts of them they would like enhanced. You don't want to take out them. You still want them to be able to see themselves in that picture. As I mentioned, we should be probably doing this. Let me just undo here quickly. Probably doing this on a layer. I just want to delete all the other stuff. I want to create a new layer here, a new piece of plastic on top of my sheet, so that when I do my retouching, I can actually check. If I do make a mess up, I can just erase without damaging the background image. So I'm going to just quickly retouch back where I was. make sure to keep in mind, as I mentioned, that healing brush does pull in texture. So if you got funny textures, it's going to blend it, but it's going to have that funny texture which doesn't really belong there. So try and match the blends with the matched textures too. So you don't want a flat spot through there. It's going to look a bit odd. So you're try and keep the same textures in there. You can very quickly, especially when it comes to hair and skin, you can very quickly see when something doesn't quite belong where it is. The texture isn't quite right. Okay, see I'm clicking just above the eyebrow here, just because I'm going to be cloning from the edge of the eyebrow. If I clicked from out here, it would then kind of get rid of my eyebrow and pull a bit of the black from the eyebrow into the skin, and you don't really want that. You want to keep your skin tones pure. Okay, going back to some of the wrinkles this side. Okay. Basically what we're doing is we're taking out all the really noticeable stuff, the harsh stuff. The skin smoothing will clear a lot of this up as well. But it's good to have texture in your skin. You want to have that in there. So at the moment I'm just cloning with the healing brush, using my Alt button to select an area. And there's nothing wrong with a bit of wrinkle, but we can even take that out of it as well. With this, it can look funny if you kill them completely. So you don't want to kill that entirely. So what we'll do is we'll create a new layer for this. Let's just name this one here Retouching. And I'm going to create a new layer above that. And I'm going to call this eye wrinkles. Okay, the reason I'm doing this is because, like I said, I don't want to take it out entirely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clone over these wrinkles. Basically I'm going to take them out entirely, but then bring them back in subtly. Okay, that doesn't work. So sometimes you have to undo and make your brush a little bit smaller and go back in there and attack it on a smaller scale. I can zoom in some more just to make sure you're getting it exactly what you want. Try and blend it a little bit better. Okay, so we're taking out. That's the wonderful thing about the clone tool. You want, as I mentioned in the earlier tutorial, you don't want to go over and over on the same spot because you tend to get really bad looking pixels. But once or twice you can just blend it quite nicely. So take out that little spot there. Okay, if I take all these wrinkles out in the eye, you'll notice how bland the eye actually looks without wrinkles. Everyone needs wrinkles. I know I often meet grannies that say they want to look young, but you can lighten their wrinkles, but by taking them out they don't look natural. So there's a limit to what you do and what you don't do as far as wrinkles go. Okay, so if I compare that eye, so it doesn't look too bad, but if you want to bring some of the wrinkles back in, what we do is we just change the opacity of this layer. Opacity meaning basically how solid that layer is, if it's see-through or not. So you want to make it a little bit see-through, so you want to allow these layers below it to shine through this layer a little bit. So if I turn it on and off, you can see, if we look in the right hand eye there, you can see the stuff that's been taken out. So I want to see a little bit of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop this opacity of this layer. I've got this layer selected, go to the opacity, and I'll take it down to say 50%. Okay, so if I turn it on and off now, you can see it's a slight difference. The wrinkles are still there, but they're not harsh. So you, depending on the routine, like I said, this one was barely noticeable. By taking out those wrinkles, you actually didn't make too much of a difference. I'm going to make it back 100% again just to clone out the other eye, because it's kind of difficult to judge your cloning with 50% whether it's actually having an effect or not. Hold my Alt or Option button in, sample, and I'm going to smoothen this up a bit. Okay, make it a bit more subtle there. Take out some of these wrinkles on the side here. You can see I haven't matched entirely. I'm doing a very overall clone, but it's going to take this area here and it's going to mix it in with the one surrounding it. So sometimes you can get away with using really contrasty colors. It'll blend it for you quite nicely. Experience, I guess, with this tool is what works best. Just knowing where you can and can't get away with odd colors. So there I've taken out this nasty little streak that was here too. You can see a bit of a flat piece here. You notice it immediately. I can clone some texture and color back in there again. Once again, there's a hard edge, so the hard edge it's really maintaining. There you go, that looks a little better. That piece is quite noticeable, so I'm going to clone it out and then we can bring it back in a little bit. Okay, let's take a look. Let's drop us down to 50% again. Okay. So it's made a significant difference. Like I say, you want those wrinkles to be in there just to maintain that element of natural or realism. Looks quite good. Okay, next up, I want to enhance the eyes. You've got pretty eyes to start with, but we often see that dark ring around the eye, and it makes the eye just pop, enhances the detail in there. So I'm going to create a new layer once again, and I'm going to call this one eyes. And what we're going to do here is we're going to do a bit of dodge and burn to it. So I want to lighten this inside area but darken the outer area. So I'm going to select a brush. I'm going to change this just by resetting it and put white in the foreground. And I'm going to size my brush to roughly the size of the pupil. Not the pupil, the actual eye, the iris. I think that's what you call it, the iris. Make sure it's nice and soft. You don't want a hard edge on there. I'm going to bring it in one click smaller just so we can have that outer edge around it for the darkening. So I'm going to click on it on the eye, and I'm going to come this side, I'm going to click on the eye this side. Okay, so that doesn't look too impressive, but we're going to change the blending mode to soft light. So there it is, soft light. And basically it's just lightening up that area there. This, along the sides of this soft light, we can actually paint in a bit of dark edge. This is so one way of doing it. I'll show you a variation will probably be more effective for this. I'm going to minimize my brush size. I'm going to paint the foreground colour being black. That's the colour I'm going to paint, and it's on soft light, so it's basically going to really amplify that. You can see it's only working on the, it's not having quite an effect on the highlights as what it is on that mid-tone. It's a bit harsh, so I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to drop my opacity on my brush to 20%. We'll try again, make sure it's soft brush, and let's run that around this edge here again. Okay, I'll do this side as well. Okay, so that's one way we can get there. I'll turn that layer on and off. You can see the difference in the eyes. Okay, not quite what we had in mind. We want a bit more detail on the inside here. That white seems to have blown that out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dodge and burn rather. So I'm going to trash this layer, and this is where I'm going to make a selection. Let's trash that layer, and I'm going to go and select this. Now another part of the selection tool is a quick selection. By selecting this one here, it lets you paint using the brush. You can paint a selection. So you select the brush, I'm going to click this on, you'll see it's now active. You don't see any difference here, but as I paint, you'll see it'll almost paint like a red little layer over the top of it. Oops, let me just make my new eye layer. Actually, I'm gonna copy a piece of this out of here, so we won't worry with the layer. I'm going to select that there. I'm going to paint on the outer. With this brush selected, you don't have to worry about thinking, okay, I'm going to be painting. Why is it now? Let me make a selection first. Maybe it's got an issue with that. I'll make a selection around here. It's more or less where I'm going to be selecting. And I'm going to switch to a quick mask. Come on. Sorry, let's just put it back to where it was. Make a selection. I'm going to switch it to a quick mask. It's going to fill that with red, or inversely. We can paint it out, I guess. Let's select the brush now, because this is now a quick mask or a quick selection, and I can now paint that out using my brush, keeping in mind the positive and negative aspects of this. When you're working with masks, it's either paint in or paint out. So if you're going to paint it in, you're going to paint black. If you're going to paint it out, you're going to paint white. So we're going to brush this in. Oh, sorry, my brush is, so the opacity is on 20%. That's why I'm not seeing it. So change my opacity back to 100%. If I click on here now, it's painting the mask in, as I mentioned. I'm going to paint it out. So here I am painting it out, and I'm going to select the eye there, and I'm going to paint it in here as well. Select this eye. Okay, now if you go down to this, let's swap this out here. If I switch off the quick mask, it'll change it back to a selection. So now it's showing the selection that I've painted in there, but it's going to be a nice soft selection because the selection actually represents the brush you use. So I've got a soft brush, so my selection will be soft too. Okay, this is very handy. This is the kind of selection I do. I never use this magic wand tool because it's really terrible, as I mentioned before. I'm going to now select the layer I want to copy. So I want to copy the eyes, just the irises out of the eyes there. Let's maybe add a little bit more to it. Change back to quick mask. I'm going to put a bit more selection in here. Make sure I'm getting all of the eye. If you click back to the selection, you can see where the selection is running. I've got the whole eye in there. I've got the whole eye in here. And selecting this layer, I'm going to go up here to selection, to edit. I'm going to say copy. Okay, and I'm going to go and wherever I click now, if I say paste, it's going to paste it onto a layer above that. It's going to create a new layer. So if I say edit, paste, there it is. So it's created a new layer. Okay, now if I turn it on and off, you won't see a difference because my eyes are exactly on top of there. But now I'm going to be selecting this layer, and I'm going to call it eyes. Now just to prove that there is something there, I'm going to turn off the original image, and you'll see just eyes left here. Okay, so there's my eyes, there's my retouching. If I turn the retouching off, that's the piece of skin, there's the lowered opacity, wrinkles that are taken out. They're kind of freaky. So very much like I was talking about a little plastic piece of paper, if I control or Apple 0, showing me the whole image, but with the background image switched off, that's basically all that you see on these layers. So these are the eyes I'm going to be playing with. Because I want to see them in the context of the actual image, I'm going to turn the image on too. So although you can't see them, I have them selected. So now when I do a dodge and burn, it's not going to affect the rest of the image. Let me just go onto the original image here, and let me select the burn tool. And I'll show you if I want to burn in my image now, it's going to affect the image too. It's already low. Let me up the opacity a bit, 20%. And it's affecting shadows. Let me change to midtones. If I burn here, you're going to see it's affecting the eye, the skin around the eye, and everything else too. That's not what I'm wanting. It's going to look like a raccoon by the time I'm done with these darkened eyes. Okay, so that's not what I'm looking for. So I wanted to isolate the iris. That's why I've copied it onto a new layer, onto its own layer. So with that layer selected now, I can go and do that over again. Okay, so I want to really make the detail pop. So I'm going to work on the shadows here, and I'm going to go over it there like that, and I'm going to come back to this one and do the same thing this side. You can see it darkening a little bit, and then I'm going to go in the opposite direction with the dodge tool. So dodge is going to lighten, burn is going to darken, and with the dodge tool I'm selecting the highlights, maybe up a little bit, 20%, and I'm going to go over that with the highlights now. So now you're basically getting more contrast in the eye, is basically what it's doing. Okay, highlighting, brightening the highlights. Okay. What I could do here is just to enhance the midtones a little bit. I'm going to go over the whole midtone, burn it a bit, and then just to separate the outer edge from the inner edge, I'm going to go back to the dodge tool, and I'm going to minimize my brush, make it smaller, just so it fits in that spot, leaving a dark ring around there. Okay, with the dodge tool selected, and I'm going to switch it to midtones. I'm going to lighten up the midtones in that area. So click, 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 and every time you click it lightens it up one thing. Okay, let's see if it's made a difference in my eyes. Switch this eyes off, see the original eyes. Okay, it's almost changed the color of them to brown rather than from green. So maybe overkill a little bit there. Okay, let's undo it a little bit, yeah. As I mentioned, your preferences allow you to set how many steps back in your history you can go. As you can see here now, that's the furthest back I can go. So I'm now sitting in a situation where I'll have to trash this layer and redo it. So let me get rid of that layer, Fortunately, I still have the selection in memory, so if I go select and I say reselect, it's going to select the last selection I made. I can just copy and paste that again. Shortcut of copy is Control or Command C, and select the layer I want to copy above, and I Control or Command V, V for Vicky, and it'll paste it in there. Okay, so eyes, back to the square one, and just to get back to where we want to be, let me just quickly do this for you. Okay, I'm going to burn this in. And I'm going to get, oh, that was, shucks, that was on the wrong layer. I want to do to the shadows, so I'm going to change it back to the shadows. I want to really enhance the shadows there. And I'm going to go back to my dodge tool, and I'm going to pull out the highlights in this little area here. Okay. So it's a bit more subtle. Just there. Okay, so that's how I affected my eyes. If I want to change the color of my eyes, I use the same step I did the first time around, and I can add a layer in there and I can paint a color in. So if I want to make it more green, I can really bring in a green there. I can paint it in physically on my new layer here. I can then take my brush tool, having selected the color I want, I can paint in a color that I want there. And then you just choose your blending mode, which soft light normally works really nicely for blending in subtle colors. And that's a bit alienistic, so I can really tone it down, say 20%, bring it up a bit 50%, just bring back a bit of green in the eye. Okay, it's very green, so it's almost unnatural green. But you get the gist of it. So you can make subtle changes, just adding a little bit of green extra into your eyes there. A darker green wouldn't look so hectic, so that's something to think about. Okay, going back to the original image, we're going to once again paint in a, if I switch that to my my quick mask, I can then paint in on the lips here. So I just change this to black to paint in. Can paint in a selection to enhance my lips. So this is now how you can edit specific elements within Photoshop. So instead of doing broad overall changes, you can now use selections. Okay, the other alternative to this, well, let me do this quickly for you. I'll flip out of the quick mask quickly, and I'm going to fill that with red. I want to make her lips really nice and red, so I'm going to go up to the red, pink, whichever. If you want to make it more of a pinky color, give a nice pink lips, and you say edit fill. Okay, this is almost ended in a bad situation because I'm still selected on my original image, so I'm going to end up putting this color onto my original image, which is not what I want. I want to put it onto a layer, so make sure you have this layer selected. I'm really getting lost because I haven't named this. This was the green colors in my eyes, so I can label that green eyes just so I know where I am. Create a new layer, and I can call this one lips. So with these layers really are the best thing because you can affect each element separately, and if you mess it up you can just trash that without affecting the other adjustments you've made. So it really is fantastic. So lips, you can edit, and we can edit fill. I'm going to fill that selection with the foreground color, which is the pink I chose, or the purplish. Oops, Apple Z to undo. Select, because it's obviously got a different selection going on here, so I need to select inverse. Just going to swap the selection around, so instead of selecting everything else in this area everywhere else here, I'm going to inverse and select just the lips. So inverse, you'll see the ants have disappeared from this area here and it's just running around this area here. So it's telling me that the lips are selected. So edit fill, and there it is, into the lips. Once again you can deselect, select, deselect, or Command or Control D. And there it is. We can then blend it. You can either multiply it for really deep lips. Overlay is also another deep color. but like I say, soft light is nice and subtle. Soft light, and it tends to blend it more naturally for skin colors. Like I say, if it's a bit harsh for you, you can down it a bit with the opacity, so it's not so intense. So from red to a bit of pink. So this way you can really, in effect, add makeup too. When you get really artistic, you can be a case of create a layer, and you can really say, okay, I didn't have a model to shoot with. This is just my cousin or whatever it is, and she wasn't willing to get all dolled up, so I'd like to doll her up myself. And selecting this brush here, you can actually change this to a spray brush, spray paint. Let me see if I can find the brush here. Here we go. So enable airbrush. So this means it's gonna basically, the longer you leave it in a spot, the more it's gonna blow, just like an airbrush. If you leave it in one space, it's gonna spread. Just go back in my history. Okay, and we want to do this subtly, but on soft. Maybe increase the brush size, and I'm going to change. Oops, select my brush and change the opacity to 20% because I just want to airbrush it in gently. And maybe increase the brush size a little bit using my square brackets. Now brush some makeup in here, just gently. Each time I go over it, it'll then darken it more and more. Okay, so we can get that. I've got a paid model look if you want to. So you can get a bit more creative. Just to soften that edge a bit, if I go into my eraser tool and I select a relatively bigger brush, the bigger your brush, the bigger the soft edge will be on it. Even though you say your hardness here is 0, 0 at this size is different from 0 at that size. The smaller your brush, the harsher your edge. No matter how soft it is, even though it says 0 here, it's still, a brush at this size is harsher than a brush at this size. So I want to really blend that softly, so I increase the brush size and I begin erasing that. Now this is where I'm going to show you masking. See how softly it bleeds into that, so it's not a hard edge. So if I make a mistake here now, it's kind of a case of, oh shucks, I've erased it completely. I can't bring back anything. Whereas if I undo that, and I go down here and I say I want to create a mask, this little item here is a mask. Otherwise I can go up here to layer, and I can add a layer mask over here. Hide all, reveal all means whether your mask will be totally enforced and you're going to paint in, or if it's going to be totally out and you're going to paint out. So let me show you. If I say reveal all, it's going to be a white mask basically. So it's going to be showing me all this purple. So say reveal all. There my mask is white and it's showing me everything there. If I want to paint this in slowly, I can go to my layer and I can say layer mask. Oops, let me just get rid of this other mask. I can't put two masks on here. Sorry, sometimes my Photoshop has a moment. I've got to switch between things to get it back. Let me just trash this mask. I don't want to apply this mask, so I just say delete. Okay, I'm going to add another mask to it. Layer mask, and then I say hide all. Now you'll see it'll put a black mask there, and the blue eyeshadow is going to disappear. So there it is, it's gone, it's now painted out. So basically this mask is saying that I'm hiding everything under this mask. Picture this little box here as being on top of this. Black is hiding and white is revealing. So I'm going to paint in onto my mask. I'm selecting, see the mask has got a little square around it. If I select here, I'm going to paint onto that layer. I don't want to paint onto the layer, I want to paint onto the mask. So I'll select my mask which is applicable to this layer, and I'm going to paint out some of that mask. So selecting a brush, I'm going to change this to white because I'm painting out, so the foreground color is going to be white, and still got an opacity of 20%. I can now paint in elements. I can even paint it in, since it's already painted in 20%, I can paint it in harsh, full opacity 100%, and I can paint it in. So I'm basically revealing that stuff underneath here again. As you can see, I'm painting everywhere else, but that purple wasn't painted anywhere else. It's not I'm not painting purple, I'm revealing purple, if that makes sense. So like I said, I find this edge a bit harsh here, so now I can paint back in my mask again because I painted it out. So switching using the X, watch these little buttons here. If I use X, it'll switch between black and white, or I can just use this little arrow here to switch between black and white. I want the black on the foreground because I'm going to paint the mask back in, meaning I'm going to theoretically erase this, although it'll still be there, it'll be hiding underneath. So I can then increase the brush size, and I can paint back in this here. See how subtle it goes? Okay, and maybe I've painted too much out there, so now I can switch back to the white, and I can paint it back in again, dropping my brush size down. I can paint that purple back in a bit more there again. Okay, so that's the beauty about masks, is you aren't deleting that makeup there, but you are hiding it or revealing it with a mask. And it's really a wonderful tool. So switching back to my layer, as I switch back, you'll see this little color palette here changes from black and white. You can only work in black and white because, like I said, it's add or remove. So it's either there or it isn't. You can't have a half there mask. Unless of course you paint it in an opacity. But yeah, that's basically the effect of it. Using opacity is just going to lighten that there. You're basically looking through a fogged window, to kind of describe it in that way. So if I change my opacity here to say 50% and click on the mask here, you'll see it's changed back. I want to brush it out. I'm not taking it away completely. You can still see purple there. If you look down here, that little white dot there has now turned to grey because I've put a 50% black in there. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to select my layer once again, and I'm going to paint some more makeup in on this side. So my brush is still selected, and I'm going to change it back down to 20%. I want to put it in subtly, and that purple is on the foreground. Reducing my brush size, I'm going to paint in this side here again, keeping in mind that the mask is now hiding that. So what I might want to do is actually reveal it. Open up that mask there. So I'm going to brush that mask out for now with 100%. Brush it out so you can see the way I'm painting with my purple. I can always come bring my mask back in to edit it again. So I hope I'm not going too fast here. Reducing this back down to 20% for my brush, clicking on my layer to actually use my brush. So I'm painting in the purple again. Reducing the brush size. I'm painting some purple some more here, build up the eye here. Okay, maybe a little bit more I can brush in there. You can see I've messed up and gone a bit in the eye's getting murky there. So now using my mask, I can switch back to my mask and I can paint out. So I painted white to reveal the blue, the purple, and I'm going to paint black to hide the blue again. Using my brush, filling my opacity to 100%. I'm going to reduce this smaller so I can brush out the purple from the eye here, because obviously it got into the eye a bit. I don't want purple eyes, it doesn't work too well. Okay, so painting back that purple there. Okay, increasing it again. I'm going to make this a bit more subtle of change here, out of the eyebrow, out of the shadow here. Okay, so there I've added hectic makeup. Like I said, this is more arty. I'm just giving you a demonstration on how you can use the various tools to add effects to this. Okay, on to skin softening. There's various ways of skin softening. The very basic way is basically to select this layer, duplicate it to basically make a copy of this layer. How you do that is you click and you drag onto this create new layer icon there. So onto here, if you drag your layer and drop it on there, drag and drop, it'll then make a copy. You can see now I've got two layers like that. This is the copy. So the problem now is I've done retouching. So in a sense, if I do the skin softening to here, the skin softening isn't going to apply to the retouching. So you're going to end up with hard skin where the retouching's happened. So what you actually need to do is delete that first. You take all the skin softening elements and you do need to flatten that into your original image. So we're going to merge those layers as I showed you before, and it's going to squash that into here. So now that's all one element now. So what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate that, and we're going to go up to filter, and we're going to say blur, and we're going to choose Gaussian blur. Gaussian blur is a very harsh blur, shall I say. It really affects. You can see this picture now change to more blurry. So as you increase it, the more blurred your picture becomes. You can see my eyes and my makeup are above this layer, so that they aren't being affected, they are staying sharp. But I don't want it this blurry, because basically this is going to be what your skin looks like. You don't want your skin to be that blurry, you want it to still have some resemblance of skin. So we'll take it down to about there. This gives you a close-up preview of what your skin looks like, so that's the before and after. As you click on it and hold, it'll give you the before and after. Not to worry about that looking terrible, because we're going to paint that out with a mask. Okay, maybe I wanted a little bit more detail in there. Okay, so you can say okay, that looks relatively okay. Because the whole picture's blurry and these eyes are really glaring at us, we don't really get the true effect. So I want to move this layer above the other layers. I want to put it at the top here. But like I say, this is, if you think of it as layers, you're looking at it from the side, and this is your edge of your piece of paper. These pieces of paper are all lying on top of each other. I want to put this one here right at the top. So I click and I'm holding it in, I'll drag it up, and you'll see a little line up here, sort of darken. That's where it's going to drop it. I want to put it above that, so I'll drop it there, and it's now slotted in the top. Okay, so I don't have those scary eyes glaring at me anymore. But now what I want to do is I want to paint some of the stuff out, because I want my eyes and the edges of my mouth, my hair, all to be sharp. It doesn't need to be blurry. So I'm going to add a mask to it. So I just click here and I'll add a mask, and I can brush out stuff because my mask is selected. It's got that square around it. I can use the black and I can paint out the blur. As you can see, I can, using a soft edge, so it's not harsh, I can paint sharp areas back in. So the blur is still there. If I mess up and I go onto the skin here, I can then switch to white and I can paint that mask back in there again. Okay. So possibly with this I should have included the makeup in the blur, because makeup's going to be quite harsh. Actually no, the makeup should be fine. It shouldn't be a hassle. I must just put this below my makeup. So here's my makeup. This is my makeup here. Let me just name it. Let's call it eyeshadow. So I'll put that above here. It's still going to blend onto the smoothness, so it's still got that soft look to it, because it's blending from here down onto everything with this opacity. Yeah, okay. If I really want to make it subtle, I can then put a soft light on it as well to just make it even softer. But yeah, it's a bit too subtle with that. Maybe you see overlay. With these different blending effects, you just got to try and see which one works better. Multiply or then combine the two. That's nice and subtle and looks more natural than the normal was very in your face. These other options look a little bit more natural and subtle. Okay, back onto my mask here for the skin softening. Once again, see I'm busy painting it back in. I want to paint it out, so I switch to black. Painting in my sharp areas. Generally, wherever the skin is, you want to keep it sharp, except for where there's an edge. So, for example, you want to sharpen up these eyebrows, so you'll have to paint those in. Being careful not to go onto the skin, because you'll notice it straight away. Paint your eyes back in, nice and sharp, and the eyelashes. Note I haven't just painted in the eye, but I've actually painted in the edge of the eye as well. That edge is very noticeable if it's fuzzy. You can maybe increase your eye bit to give it more of a softer edge, so you can include some of the eyelashes. Switching, using the X, I switch my painting to paint out. Bring some of that, I don't want to get the skin in there. X again to paint some more of this eyebrow in there. Okay, this side, painting the eyebrow and the eyelashes. Okay, and then just on the edges, because you notice, like I say, you notice a soft edge from a mile away, so I'll just paint in the edges a little bit here, just to give it that definition. And the lips you want to be nice and sharp as well. So don't be scared with a mask. You don't have to be scared of going over an edge too much, because you can always paint it back in. So sometimes it's best just to do a rough go over Make sure you got everything in, and then where you've gone onto the skin later, you can just hit X, switch over to paint in, reduce it, and just paint it back in on the edges there. So you're still maintaining that line, but you can paint in around the edge of the skin that's been caught. Okay, so how's that looking? Okay, so your skin's a little softer. It's a bit fuzzy here as well. You can paint that out, sharpen that up a bit. Okay, like I say, I like the earring to be sharp. Oops. Increase my brush size, square brackets. The clothes and everything, all the stuff you'd then sharpen up. Just leaving basically the skin affected. Okay, so let's switch the skin off. Whoops. Wrinkles. Oh yes, this is the one. Correct. Let's just change this now to skin softening. It's called R wrinkles because this bottom layer, let me just finish naming this, softening. This layer is called R wrinkles because this is the layer that we duplicated, so it's called R wrinkles copy. Okay, so skin softening, this is the one. So if I turn the skin softening off, let's take a look at the before and after. Very subtle. Okay, so you can see it's just smoothed out all these fine wrinkles. So that's the one way of doing skin softening. There is another way that's quite a bit more complicated, where you're using the threshold and all sorts of other techniques. I've actually converted that into an action because it's quite a complex story, and I've changed to skin smoothing here. So the action, I'll stick this on a disc too. It allows you to then paint in specific areas as you run this action. It'll let you know what you want to do. Let me just flatten. That's the only thing with the action, it has to be done on a flattened image. So if I flatten, and well, I haven't even covered actions yet, but actions are basically a saved series of moves or actions that you've done that you can then save and name and use over and over again. So it's just a quick way of creating an effect. Like I say, it's quite a process. These are all the steps that I took in creating the soften effect. So selecting this flattened image now, I'm going to say play. So I've got this action selected. So play action. It's going to then give me pointers as to what I need to do next. So if I've forgotten, or in your case, if you've just loaded this action yourself and you don't know what to do with it, it'll tell you to apply a setting of between 5 and 10 pixels. So the worst skin blemishes are visible. Most of the skin is not selected. Okay, so continue. It now brings us up, and between 5 and 10 instead I must choose. Okay, so basically what you're going to do is try and get your blemishes visible. Down to 5, see what the difference is. You want a bit more, so let's bring it up to about 10. Okay, so what it's doing is making a selection of the wrinkles and stuff, and those are the elements that's going to soften up. So I'll say OK, and it'll continue to do its thing. Next, it's going to tell you set the selection preview to quick mask with selection selected. With the selection checked, fuzziness around 50 to show areas of smooth or the 50% grey more clearly. So we say continue, and I must select the quick or make a selection of which areas I want. Okay, sample an area of smooth skin in the image, indicated by a smooth red in the mask. Lower the fuzziness to 0 and begin moving the slider up until you see skin flaws visible as greys. Okay, so here it is. I must select a piece of skin and I must increase my fuzziness a bit. Let's just check until I just see skin. There we go. Okay, so basically I'm selecting a piece of good skin and then bringing it in until I see the flaws. So I can bring the fuzziness down. All those little speckles will be wrinkles and specks in the skin. Okay, so I say OK, and I'll then make a selection of that. Now I need to double click on the edit mask button and make sure the color indicates selected areas is selected. Okay, so double click on here, selected areas. Okay, so now I push play again. It'll tell me select the eraser tool and erase areas that you do not want smoothed, eyes, eyebrows, etc. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. I'm going to follow that direction, eraser tool. I'm going to brush out all things, make sure it's on 100% opacity. I'm going to increase my brush size to get this done quickly. I don't want these things softened, so I'm brushing out all the stuff I don't want softened. Okay, well, I want that hand in there, so I'm just going to undo that. Keep in mind this isn't a mask you're busy with, so erasing, you can't just undo and erase, so make sure you erase accurately here. Okay, I'm going to reduce, I'm going to hide this palette quickly, reduce my brush size, and I'm going to brush out this hair here too. Okay, and like it says, eyebrows, I don't want them softened, so let's just brush those out too. Your eye. So basically it's exactly what I was doing before, except it's just a different technique of doing it. You'll see the difference, comparatively speaking. This is a lot more natural. It's a bit more process, but it's a lot more natural than just the Gaussian blur. Okay, it's already hasn't selected the edges, so it's keeping it nice. I'm just brush the lips out, make sure those are nicely clean. Okay. So it's preserving your edges is basically what this effect is doing, because like I said, the moment your edges become fuzzy it looks really dodgy. I'm going to brush all this out too because this doesn't need to be softened. Let's zoom out a little bit. Okay, you can see parts of the edges of the face are not selected, because you don't really notice the texture of the skin in that area. Reduce this a bit more, take this back. Okay, so this is going to look good. Okay, I'm done. Now I go back to my action and I continue with my action. So I open this up. Where's my action? There's my action, and I'll say play. Now it's going to do, tell me the next step it's going to take. Click on the standard mode button at the bottom of the tools palette to run the quick mask into a selection. Turn off the high pass layer and click on the background layer. Okay, so it's done a high pass filter. I'll stop it again. It's told me to turn this into a selection, and it's told me to turn this high pass layer off and click on the background layer. Okay, so play. Okay, now it's applying a Gaussian blur. So once again, it's applying a Gaussian blur, but it's more a specific selection. You saw those selections, it's selecting specific parts of the skin, not the whole skin as an overall. I'm going to select between 4 and 10. Okay, the amount of blur needs to be sufficient to cover the holes in the mask. Okay, so if I reduce this down, you'll see this whole bunch of little pits. Those are basically your imperfections. Okay, so I want to get rid of those imperfections, so I need to up this mask until those imperfections have been kind of blurred out. Okay, so that's looking pretty nice and smooth. Okay, so I'll say okay. Just the opacity to taste, so you can see it's looking very pasty, and that's pretty much that action done. So now all I have to do now is come in here and I adjust this layer 50%, and look how nice and natural that is. Really beautiful skin softening. So that's an action I'll put on the disk as well. To load an action, you would go into the action window and the pull down menu here in the action window, and you can say here there's a load action. Okay, so from there you'd go and navigate to the disk, select the action and say open, and it will then pop it into your window here. In the next tutorial we'll take a look at deep etching. That's just something that often comes up in the photo world as well. Deep etching basically means cutting out a background and putting your foreground onto a new background. So we'll cover that in the next lesson. Until then, enjoy practicing, and we'll see you there.